Even as the fighting in the Middle East threatens to impact on oil supply chains and thereby also impacting on oil prices globally, impacting on a lot of economic activity. To talk about that and what really has been the response as far as this particular conflict is concerned, with me is Jeffrey Sachs, who's an American economist. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Do you believe, to begin with, that the United States, Israel and their allies underestimated the scale, depth and sophistication of Iran's military and strategic capabilities while striking it?
Certainly they did. They believed that they would kill the supreme leader and that the public would rally to their cause, the Israel-U.S. cause, and that would be the end of it. This was delusional, but unfortunately Israel and the United States are led by delusional people.
So we've seen conflicts in the recent past impacting on the global economy. There's Russia, Ukraine, there's been Israel, Gaza, and now we are looking at a situation where the entire Middle East, in fact, the Straits of Hormuz supply about 20% of the global oil. In such a situation and the widening regional war, what is really the economic stability from your assessment going to be impacted? Is the world economy then entering a dangerous phase as we know it?
This war has a strategic aim by the United States, which is to control the Middle East. It has a strategic aim of Israel to be the hegemonic power in the Middle East. They think that they will kill the Iranian opposition to the U.S. and Israel, in other words, bring down the regime, and then they will control the flow of oil. By the way, that is aimed not only at controlling that resource, but aimed against China and perhaps against India. The U.S. wants to determine who gets oil when. The U.S. says to India, you can't use Russia's oil unless we approve. The U.S. says to Europe, you can't use Russia's oil and gas unless we approve. The United States says to Venezuela, you can't export your oil outside of the American hemisphere unless we approve. This is the United States trying to flex its hegemonic muscle. It is a global strategic aim, not just an accident of the Straits of Hormuz. It's by design that the United States wants control. It's not going to work, most likely. Instead, it's going to create chaos, which is generally what happens with these U.S.-Israel adventures, like happened in Iraq, in Libya, in Sudan, in Syria. This is the same. These people live with delusions, and they create harm for everybody else.
Right. We've seen Iran, managing to fairly successfully block the Straits of Hormuz. Do you think they're attempting to send a global message to the world at large that it has the capacity to disrupt energy supplies and thereby trigger global economic instability by this sort of strategic targeting?
From Iran's point of view, what they see is that they are surrounded by American military bases. The Gulf region is an American military zone. When Iran strikes, people say, well, they're hitting Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. This is not right. They are attacking U.S. military and CIA installations in these countries. So from Iran's point of view, they are attacking the United States, which attacked them first. But the message that they're sending is, we don't want to be with America at its hands on our throat. America just killed our revered global leader, religious leader, national leader. How can any country have this as its reality? And this is the reality that Iran faces right now.
Right. And along with the U.S. bases, which you rightly said have been the target of Iran, they've also targeted Saudi's Aramco's sort of Ras Tanura facility, Kuwait's Doha West Power Station. We've seen attacks on oil tankers. We've seen, attacks in the UAE's Fujairah oil facility. Do you think these actions suggest a deliberate strategy of triggering a regional and possibly global energy crisis as a form of retaliation or even perhaps deterrence in that sense?
I think that they are a very clear sign by Iran. Do not let the United States and Israel own you, and you will be at threat. To my mind, it recalls Kissinger's famous adage that to be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be a friend of the United States is fatal. Kissinger said that, and it reverberated. Well, Iran is an enemy of the United States, I don't think for valid reason, but it is seen to be. But Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates are friends of the United States, and they're paying a very high price. They host the American military. They host the CIA. That is what the message is from Iran.
Right, and President Trump has come out to say that the plan for Iran war initially was projected for 4 to 5 weeks, adding that U.S. military has the capability to go far longer than that. You believe that Donald Trump has now clearly indicated that this war could become prolonged, and you expect the Trump administration to consider deploying boots on ground in the region?
I don't believe that Trump can sustain a long war because the American people are utterly against it. This was a war led by Trump and the CIA, not by American public opinion. American public opinion is overwhelmingly against this war. Trump tries to rule as a one-person rule, but the American people are not accepting this. And so I don't think that this is going to be a long war, and I don't think America is going to put troops on the ground because I don't think that American society will accept anything like that.
There are also, there's a battle of narratives is also underway, and that's, not uncommon when there's a war that's coming in. In fact, the status of the Straits of Hormuz itself is disputed. While Iran claims it's shut down, the United States dismisses that possibility. In your assessment, has enough damage already been done to inflict significant disruption on global markets and energy flows?
I'm not there, but from what I can see, definitely yes. The ships are not moving. The insurers are saying we can't insure these tankers. No doubt a tanker going through is at risk of being hit. The United States does not have the military means to keep the Straits of Hormuz open. And so I think that for practical purposes, the Straits of Hormuz are either closed or substantially closed.
Right.
And oil prices are rising sharply, and I think they will continue to be high and perhaps rising. And the damage of that to the world economy, of course, will depend on how long the United States persists in this piratical act. But if it persists, then the damage will be very, very significant.
Absolutely. And while oil and gas are dominating the headlines, the crude prices rising, as you very rightly said, but many forget that the Gulf is also a critical hub for fertilizers, petrochemicals, and industrial feedstock, all which are vital for countries in the region, such as India and otherwise. If supply disruptions intensify, what are the broader economic consequences that we are looking at beyond higher crude prices?
It's reported today, again, I don't know whether it's a fact, that leaders of the Emirates and Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, I believe, have all spoken with President Putin. This is what's being reported. If this is true, this is a good sign because it means that these leaders in the region are trying to find a solution. I believe India can play a very constructive role here because India has the presidency of the BRICS. The BRICS are the most important stabilizing force in the whole world. They say no to U.S. hegemony, yes to multilateralism, and yes to the international rule of law. And so the BRICS could play a role, not siding with the United States, not siding with Israel, but siding with peace and the UN Charter. And this could bring this war quickly to an end. How can this war end? Very, very simply. The United States and Israel would stop their attack. That's all.
Right. In fact, you mentioned very rightly the pressure that's being built up from the U.S. on India in terms of whether it can buy Russian oil. And two questions in that regard. One, does India in the broader sense now have little choice but to expand the purchases of discounted Russian oil despite the U.S. pressure? And more broadly, how does this conflict economically impact the U.S. itself, given that Washington seeks to exert greater control over maritime access in the region? Where do you ultimately see this heading? Because we are in a situation today, and there's an update coming in that Russia has said that it's ready to fulfill India's energy demands amidst the West Asia crisis, and they've assured that there will be continued supplies if the disruption in oil supply persists.
India should say, without question, unequivocally, we buy any Russian oil we want, period. It's none of America's business, especially when America is so lawless. There are no principles involved here. Just American bullying. No principles whatsoever. If there is one country violating the UN Charter, it is the United States, which has just brazenly attacked another country. And when Russia attacked Ukraine, that was after the United States had supported a coup in neighboring Ukraine and was pushing its military to Russia's border. Completely different circumstances. Here, this is an unprovoked war. So if the United States had the audacity to tell India, don't buy Russian oil, I hope that India would have the dignity and self-interest to say, excuse me, but it's not your business.
Right. Of course, that's going to be a huge sticking point. But one question that I must ask you, do you see a realistic possibility of a regime change in Iran, particularly after the killing of the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei? It's not gone as per the US's script so far, and they're going to continue, of course, with their aerial attacks for the moment at least. But is the regime change something that will be easy for United States and Israel to effect?
I don't believe so. The U.S. is using its script that it wrote with the British in 1953, when MI6 and the CIA overthrew the leader of Iran at the time, Prime Minister Mossadegh, and they aimed to do the same thing. I don't believe we're living in 1953 when the United States CIA can just overthrow another country's government. Iran is a country of nearly 100 million people. It's fully on the case. I don't believe it's going to allow the CIA or Donald Trump to choose its government.
And lastly, are we entering a long-term multi-front war of attrition that's going to involve several regional and global players in your view?
No, we're entering a period where India, China, Russia, Brazil, South Africa, and the rest of the BRICS will tell the United States, go home, stop your fighting, stop disrupting the world. It's good for nobody. Stop this war, and the war will end.
Jeffrey Sachs, thank you so much for taking the time out, for breaking all of that down and explaining it to our viewers.
Thank you. My pleasure.